We're so excited for our first Lunch and Learn of 2024. So I just want to welcome everyone. And I think this is actually a really great way to start. With the first one, we're going to focus on strengths, thinking about our individual strengths, but also as organizations and coalitions and any other roles we might play. So today we have Ellen McCarty of McCarty & Co. and John Augusto, the Assistant Dean for Strategic Initiatives at GSU. And they are both CliftonStrengths consultants, and John is also a CliftonStrengths coach. So I will leave it to them to describe that more fully, but I also wanted to share that our team at Resilient Georgia has worked with them on our strengths and how it contributes to our work and how we show up as a team. And there's no need to take notes because we'll be sending up all the follow-up resources. And also, please feel free to shut off your camera if you would like and eat since this is a lunch and learn. And with that, I would love to turn it over to Ellen and John.
Thank you, Audrey. And good morning, good afternoon, I guess at this point, everyone. John and I are very, very excited to be with you and to talk about something that we are both passionate about as certified CliftonStrengths trainers. We are both very, very excited when we get to share the power of strengths. Strengths is a language of strengths, of talents and strengths. So to share that with you is really appreciated. Before I jump in, I also want to express appreciation for the work that all of you do. You are having such an impact across the state, and I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for all the good work that you are doing, and especially in spreading and educating individuals about trauma and having solid trauma-informed practices. All right, so let's get started here. So CliftonStrengths. What will happen when we think about what is right with people rather than fixating on what is wrong with them? This is the question that Dr. Donald Clifton, an educational psychologist, asked. And he is considered the father of positive psychology. And he is the founder and the developer and the creator and researcher of CliftonStrengths. So what Dr. Clifton is really known for by virtue of CliftonStrengths is he flipped the traditional script of focusing on what is wrong with people, and instead flip that script and ask, what if we ask what is right with people? And we focused on that as a way to help people use their strength to accomplish their goals. So this quote captures exactly his philosophy and the foundation for CliftonStrengths. So what is CliftonStrengths? CliftonStrengths is a scientific measurement that measures naturally reoccurring talent. The way John and I like to think about it is CliftonStrengths is your fingerprint. It's not a personality assessment. There are a lot of good, reliable personality assessments that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, Myers-Briggs, DISC, but they tell you what you are. The way I like to think about it is CliftonStrengths tells you why you are. So whatever your personality may be, CliftonStrengths is going to tell you why you're that way because it is your footprint. As I mentioned, it was created by Dr. Clifton. It was formerly known as StrengthsFinder, and it is now a Gallup product, Gallup, the research firm. So CliftonStrengths helps people identify, understand, and maximize their strengths, which is an individual or a team's greatest potential to achieve their goals. So it's both an individual, a team, and an organizational tool. With the primary focus is once they identify and understand their strengths, then they really learn how to leverage them, and therefore they can reach their greatest potential. It builds on individuals' greatest strengths, thereby giving them the potential to grow and succeed while also building their confidence and resilience. When we're doing training, we talk about being in your play in your on your playground. And when you are using your strengths, you are really in your playground. And that is always going to build your confidence and also build your resilience because you're going to be able to cope with the ups and downs of life and know that you can draw on your strengths as a way to do that. We hear the saying sometimes that you are unique, but what is really interesting about CliftonStrengths research is that you will receive a list of 34 strengths. That's what StrengthsFinder is based on. Is you will receive the report listing your 34 strengths in chronological order after taking the assessment. And your top 5 strengths are known as your signature strengths. And in order for someone to have the same signature strengths that you have is 33.4 million. So this really, really underscores that you truly are unique. When you think about that, and this is all research based, to think that it would take 33.4 million people to have the same strengths in your order is it is no better way to really underscore how unique you are. So who does CliftonStrengths serve? CliftonStrengths is a universal model, so it can be used because it's strengths-based and we all have strengths. It can be used with individuals. It can be used with organizations desiring to build high-functioning teams or strengthen existing teams. It can be used with leadership teams. Actually, if you're using it organizationally as a tool, the leadership team is really crucial because in order to sustain a strengths-based culture, it needs to start at the top, and the leadership team needs to invest and really demonstrate that they are committed to creating and sustaining a culture with strengths as the underpinning. So leadership teams, managers, Gallup has committed a year's worth of research into managers specifically. And based on all of their studies and the findings from those studies, they have really designed training curriculum specifically for managers and shifting that paradigm from a boss to a coach to develop individuals and develop teams. So there's a component that is specifically for managers, also governing boards. So if you're a nonprofit, using CliftonStrengths with your board to identify the strengths of the board, where there may be gaps, and where you can really leverage all the strengths of the board in order to advance the mission. And then also youth. There is a separate assessment specifically for youth ages 10 to 14, and it's called CliftonStrengths Explorer. And it identifies a youth's top 3 strengths. And then from there, you can also use CliftonStrengths with older youth. And you'll hear more about that when Alex from Vashti talks about how John and I use CliftonStrengths with the youth there. And then families, what are the strengths of individual members of a family? And then as a family unit, how can you bring all those strengths together to create a strong, functioning, and healthy family unit?
I think I'm up, Alan. Yeah. So again, I just want to echo Alan's comments that we are so appreciative of the opportunity to be with you here today, and also appreciate the work that you do for your communities and your organization. I'm John Augusto. As was introduced, I work here at Georgia State University. I've been a CliftonStrengths consultant and coach for about 7 years now. And one of the things that I get excited about when I talk about CliftonStrengths is how can we use our strengths to really address our organizational challenges. And before I forget, there's a chat open there. So if folks have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. But really one of the things we want to look at is how do we get the right talent at the right time for the right price. I think in this work, one of the key aspects we always have to focus on is as we say, who's on the bus in the right seat at the right time. And so really understanding about people's talents and how they become strengths really allows us to address that challenge by creating a strengths-based culture that actually attracts individuals into that specific organization. And that's what we're really looking for when we're talking about the organizational challenge of talent development, talent identification, is really bringing those people into a strength-based culture that's going to help them grow as individuals. In addition to that, we oftentimes, when working with organizations, seeing those organizations wanting to create employee experiences that really promote professional development. Oftentimes, some staff members see, well, if I get a promotion, that's professional development. And what Strengths does, and the strengths-based culture does, is really allows you to focus in on that development individually and saying, let's train our managers to help identify those employees' natural talents and to leverage those strengths into organizational goals. So how might someone with a high in achieving talent might be able to address a specific either departmental or organizational goal, for example? There are some other organizational challenges we see when talking with organizations about using strengths and at the individual and team level. And that one is really training managers to identify strengths and use those strengths to meet those goals and objectives. I think it's really important that we not overlook those individuals. Many of you are probably on the call, those middle managers who are working with team members to get the goals, to get those key performance indicators addressed. But also, how do you do that in a strengths-based way? One of the common things we see is that using strengths creates a common understanding of team members' strengths and a shared language to discuss challenges and success. A small example might be if I'm someone who's really strong in what we call relationship building strengths, and I'm working with someone who's a high executor. The way we look at a problem is going to look really different, but having the common language of strengths really allows us to see each other as individuals, but also then how we can work together as a pair, as a team. In addition to that, we're also looking at training managers to look at blind spots and weaknesses. One of the common critiques you hear about CliftonStrengths is, oh, well, it ignores weaknesses. And it doesn't. It really says sometimes a weakness is something that just gets in the way of being productive. So helping managers identify what possible blind spots they might have, what possible blind spots their team members might have, is really a good way to start to address that. Because using CliftonStrengths, you can train the managers how to help employees see their perspectives, understand the impact of their weaknesses, and really learn productive ways to manage these weaknesses that will lead to more productive, better employee morale, and a stronger strengths-based culture. So when we look at organizations that use CliftonStrengths, what's the impact? And again, going back to what Gallup does best. Gallup does research. If you ask anyone around the world what people are thinking, you go ask Gallup. And what Gallup has found is that people who know and use their strengths are 6 times more likely to be engaged at work, are 6 times more likely to agree that they have a chance to do what they do best every day they come to work. And finally, that they're 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. Again, we look at this and we say, oh, we want every employee in our organization to feel that way. And that's what strengths brings to this conversation. So some of the work we've done, has been mentioned, we just want to give you some quotes, some things to think about, some testimonials. I love this first one. I now understand my top strengths and how I can use them to manage my weaknesses and blind spots. In other words, I own who I am and my strengths, and now I can use them to address some of my weaknesses. I love this one too. I love CliftonStrengths. Very valuable, thought-provoking. I will use the tools moving forward to be a better leader. Oftentimes, I've seen in the past where individuals come in, they really understand, they really appreciate, they get excited about their strengths, but we really need to focus on how we apply them. How are we aiming them towards goals, whether they're personal goals or professional goals, to help them develop and become better leaders? I now understand the dynamics of our team, and we'll use the knowledge to improve team collaboration, right? We can get a lot of things done individually, but we can get a lot more done in a team-based environment. And a lot of the work that you all are doing, from my experience, from seeing it firsthand, is very team-based, and understanding how the dynamics of teams work from a strengths-based perspective is invaluable. And of course, a little plug for Ellen and I. Great and compassionate leaders. They were amazing presenters and provide great insight as well as prompts for introspection. I say that you really have to understand your talents. You have to feel them, think about them, see them in action. And that's what we try to do when Ellen and I talk about strengths. So we start with talent and we finish with strengths. So what is talent? I've mentioned this word now a couple of times. Talent is a natural recurring pattern. So natural recurring, it just happens, right? We don't have to think about it, but it's a natural recurring pattern of how we think, how we feel, and how we behave, and how that can be productively applied. It's really important, I think, to break that definition down into key aspects. Natural recurring. In other words, I don't have to like, oh, it's time to use my strategic talent. No, it's already right there, ready to go. Thought, feeling, or behavior. And this is really important because I think a lot of times in our work environment, we see people who are leaders and say, oh, well, their thoughts are very deep and very profound. Or gosh, look at that person's behavior. They're a high performer. They're meeting all their key performance indicators. They're doing great work. But we oftentimes kind of skip over the fact that there are people we work with who just feel their way through the world. And the sense of who someone is and what someone is and the dynamics of people, they have those skills. And using strengths allows us to recognize both thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And with all three of those, productively applied. And we can talk about like what weaknesses are and when they maybe not as productive as they should be. But great examples of talent include effortlessly and instinctively starting conversations. We know those people, right? They're just there. They're trying to win us over. They're starting the conversation with every person they meet. Thinking in an orderly and timely manner, right? They have a structure to how things go. Easily and naturally influencing others. For those of you who have someone in your life, you know what that person looks like. They walk into the room and everyone turns their head because that's the person that they know, hey, that's a go-to person. Seeking patterns in data, right? People who can take and discriminate different parts of data points and how they go together, and consistently having a positive outlook on life. Boy, if you don't have one of these people in your life, I feel sorry for you because they are really that person who brings sunshine, energy, excitement into everything that you do, whether in your personal life or within work. Ellen.
Yes. So let's start now to identify and maximize the talents and the strengths. And as John just mentioned, there's nothing wrong with being aware of your weaknesses. We actually want you to be aware of your weaknesses because they can stand in the way of your success. But we know from the research that the greatest opportunity for success lies in building those natural talents. So how do we do that? So we do that with a process called name it, claim it, and aim it. And this is the one slide that will really drill down on the work that we do with organizations and individuals. We start with name it, and name it is identifying your strengths and what they mean to you. So my number one strength is achiever. What does that mean for me? What does that look like for me? How does that impact my performance? How does that show up for me? So we really spend time based on your results from your assessment, really looking at your strengths, giving you the opportunity to understand them, to ask questions, to understand the descriptions, and to really identify, excuse me, what that means to you specifically. And from name it, we move to claim it. And claim it, I really, really like this one. Claim it is drilling down and understanding how your strengths show up for you. And not only how they show up for you, but how do they show up for your team? What do they look like? How do they show up for the organization? In many ways, you can think of this as claim it as the secret sauce. Every team, every department has a secret sauce that makes them successful or maybe not successful. once you understand your strengths and you understand the unique power and strengths of each and the value of each team member, then you've really found the secret sauce, and you can begin to maximize those strengths, leverage those strengths, and really see an uptick in performance. And then the last one is aim it. Once you've named it, you've identified the strengths, you've claimed it, you understand everybody's or yourself's strengths and the value that it brings to your relationships and to the working environment, then you move to aim it. And aiming it is really about intentionally investing in your strengths and practicing how to use them. So understanding that we start with talent, your fingerprint, your DNA, or your natural talents. And then we move into the time investment, developing those talents, turning those talents into your strengths, so that you don't even have to think about it. They are just who you are. But once you know that, then you can aim it, then you can be really focused, and you can develop your natural talents, turn those into strengths. And once you've done that, then you have a toolkit, and you have a way to identify which strength or strengths to use in combination to achieve goals. So we want to leave lots of time for Alex and also Q&A. So we're going to wrap it up now, and just go over really quickly what you'll receive after this. You'll receive this presentation for you to look at and to share with others. We also have one-page descriptions of the training programs for organizations, for managers, and for parents. And these are all individual one-pagers. And then we are developing the youth one-pager. Along with that, we have general goals and outcomes that are reoccurring when we talk to organizations that guide all of our training programs. So we will share those. But what's important to remember about that is that our whatever project we are fulfilling, it's really based on what your goals are, and that's the first thing we do is we understand what are your goals, what are you hoping to achieve from this. And then we also included the methodology, and that includes descriptions of the workshop content. This content was specifically, this methodology was created last year when we conducted a project with Chris 180. And this methodology included 7 sessions that we did with leadership team, directors, managers. There were between 35 and 40 people in these 7 sessions. So this is just an example of that methodology with the description of what you will receive in each session. Again, the presentation, also a video link that fully describes the CliftonStrengths assessment, which we didn't have time to really get into. And then strengths, the 34 strengths, and also the domains and the descriptions of each. So you'll understand what we're talking about when we talk about people's individual strengths. And then also notes from Vashti's summary. So with that, thank you for your attention. We appreciate it. Look forward to answering questions, and I'm going to kick it over to Alex.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again, Ellen and John and Audrey, for having us share our experience today. CliftonStrengths has been just an amazing experience and asset for myself personally, as well as the organization as a whole. And we're just so happy to continue to partner with John and Ellen. I'll just start off with a little bit of background. We were introduced to CliftonStrengths by Ellen probably right after the pandemic through our partnership and connections with Resilient Georgia. And our previous leadership at the organization just really saw the need for, like Ellen said earlier, or John said earlier, boosting the employee morale within the organization. And also saw this as a great opportunity to invest in professional development for our staff. And so it was pretty much a no-brainer to bring it to Vashti. So we took our first session in January of 2021. And we trained our management staff and anyone who supervises any of our programs to be included in that first introductory session of CliftonStrengths. And so it was just kind of the overview of what CliftonStrengths is after you take your assessment, how to apply it personally, but more of like that broad overview of the CliftonStrengths experience. And so it was really interesting to see what people's responses were to their strengths, and really affirmed people. And I felt very affirmed, and just someone who was going through a lot at that time in my personal life, needed something positive like that to show me that, you know, I could do hard things, and, you know, these are the strengths that, or the things that I needed to hear. So moving forward, we had the opportunity to partner again with Ellen and John in last January of 2023. Ellen and John approached us to be a part of the CliftonStrengths Explorer program for youth. And this was this program, it was designed to cater to youth who have been through trauma and adversity. We have a residential group home program here at Vashti. And so, you know, that is the population that we serve. And so we were super excited because not only do we invest in our staff, we also love to invest in the teens that reside with us. So anything that we can do, life skills and building them up and creating positive experiences, again, a no-brainer for us. And so it was just such a wonderful experience to have them come back last year. And I think this was your pilot program as well. So this was the first time Ellen and John had done this with teens. And it was something that we weren't sure how it was going to pan out. You never know with kids and losing interest, or, you know, what are they going to care? And so it was just a really awesome experience for them to have validation in their strengths, maybe learn something new about themselves. And then also the staff, so seeing, having staff there with them, and also just as, you know, Vashti leadership, getting to witness them experience that was really impactful for us. So we had I think we had about 20 kids last year who participated. So it was about 10 girls and 10 boys. And we did over 2 days. We conducted between the boys and the girls. We did them separately to kind of, you know, keep just everybody in line and figuring out how to best, you know, do the workshop with them. And so one of the really cool things is the evaluation afterwards. So seeing what the youth had to report back on was really, you know, interesting to us. So for the boys' evaluations, there was a moderate increase in how supported they felt after the training by their peers, and a slight increase in how much hope they have about the challenges that they're currently facing. So while slight is maybe just a little bit, when you work with teens who are in a quote unquote unnormal setting, any kind of, you know, hope or change that is for the positive is, you know, good in our eyes. So, and from the girls' findings, there was a significant increase in how supported they felt by their school personnel after this. I think a lot of the girls went back, and a lot of their trusted teachers or school like counselors that they went back to, they were able to report, you know, their strengths to them, and they talked through it. And so that was a positive thing to hear about as well. And then there was a moderate increase in how often they see their strengths in action. So a lot of them, I felt a lot of the girls had, they were very confident in knowing their strengths already. And so I think that because they were already very confident in them, that's why it wasn't a significant increase. But it was, you know, again, just super impactful for them. And overall, I think the girls showed a little bit more initiative and excitement about this, but I think overall it went very well for both groups of youth. And then we also conducted a staff training last year when they came. And it was mostly for our clinical staff, any new management who wasn't here in 2021, and then any of our residential like case managers. And so they got to experience the training as well on top of our management who had already gone through it. And then we brought them back this past January. January is just a recurring theme for us here. Just having the conversations, we have had a lot of changes this last year in the organization. New leadership who is also very invested in our professional development. And so bringing Ellen and John back was, for a third time, a no-brainer. How can we build up the staff? How can we, you know, create better rapport with new leadership and the staff that's still here? And so we are halfway through our 5 sessions with, we did 2 sessions in January. We're doing our 3rd this month. And so that's with our management team, program directors, and again, Vashti's new leadership. And we have about 22 people that are in that training. And we just have had, over the last few weeks since they've been here, I've had so many people come up to me individually and tell me more about their experience. And just yesterday, we were in a team meeting, and our chaplain came up to me and was like, "We do a lot of trainings here at Vashti," and he was like, "I just had so many great takeaways from the CliftonStrengths training." And he was just telling me, you know, that he valued how much care and attention and that Ellen and John had put into learning more about Vashti and all the different, you know, programs and and just feeling like they were very well educated around the topic. And so, you know, he was just praising y'all and the training. So just wanted to put that in there because that was a conversation that happened yesterday. But some major staff takeaways based off of our evaluations were it will help increase collaboration among staff. So they felt that if everyone continues to work together to put their strengths and recognize other strengths and everything that we're doing, then it will help increase that collaboration because we do have multiple programs here. And then just having that common language and knowing how to communicate with one another based off of our strengths was something that was very, you know, appealing to me. And I feel like that other staff reported on that as well. And then also assisting managers to align staff with roles that fit their strengths. So not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but kind of approaching a person's role based on their strengths. And then, I feel that an increase in staff performance and engagement, it will, continue to increase if leadership at any organization is investing in something like CliftonStrengths. Am I missing anything, Ellen or John?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. But thank you again for having me speak on it. Our experience has been wonderful, like I said. So let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Ellen, Alex, and John. We really appreciate this overview of this amazing assessment and how it can impact your teams and collaboration. It really is fantastic. Does anyone have any questions for these three guests? You feel free to unmute or pop in the chat. I actually have a question. So what would y'all say is the biggest difference in how you conduct the training for like staff and teams versus the youth? Like what would you say was like a major difference in that?
Do you want me to start, Ellen?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so 3 major differences when we're working with a group of staff versus a youth group. The first thing is this: it's a different assessment. So the CliftonStrengths assessment is for anyone who's, we say, around 17, 18, all the way up. The Explore, I love the word because it is just that. It takes the knowledge of how we identify talents and creates kind of a bigger, more straight and focused roadmap on identifying talents in youth. With the caveat from an assessment point of view is that we know this is their greatest time of change, brain development, right? Social skills, all those things. And so what it does is identifies talents in the youth, but does so in a very kind of big block way, as opposed to the more nuanced way we do talent development with adults. So that's the first thing, the way the assessment is different. But the second thing is then we approach the training different. One of the things that we do with the youth is to first just get them to understand the words of what does it look like to have achiever, right? What does it look like to have competition? These are talent themes that are identified in the Explorer. And so that's really important that they kind of just understand what those words mean in a very, very kind of basic and straightforward way. That's really important. The third thing that's really different is that we provide wraparound services. So for all the people that impact, affect, change, or in some way can have some type of meaning to that youth, we have materials that they can use to draw those strengths out. So John, I see you have achiever as one of your strengths. You've got this assignment coming up, or you've got this task you got to do. Walk me through the steps of how you're going to use that talent to go for those skills. And especially for individuals working with youth, we give you some really concrete methodology on how to draw that out, because I think it's really important when we're working with the Strengths Explorer to really give folks who work with the youth, whomever that may be, to give them that kind of knowledge and understanding on how to draw those talents out so they can become strengths. Ellen, do you want to add to that?
I would just add that one of the, if you looked at comparisons of CliftonStrengths to other assessments, because there are a lot of other reliable assessments, one of the strengths of CliftonStrengths that you will always see mentioned is because it is a Gallup product and because Gallup is a research firm, the resources and the tools that you receive to really, really reinforce this work is exceptional. There's no other assessment where you're going to have the availability and the accessibility of all of those resources. So, not only can John and I customize activities and different ways of different tools that you can use to build high functioning teams or to build your individual strengths. But you're also going to have access to that without us, just by virtue of taking the assessment and being in the Gallup system. So that's a real advantage if you were to research the different strengths of different assessments.
And I will add on a personal level, I'm a father of 3 amazing now adult children, but when they were youth, they all did the Strength Explorer. We did identify their talents, and their mother and I worked with them on really kind of creating a strength-based family environment. They were fortunate, at least in my eyes, they were fortunate to get that experience. Some of their friends, kind of questioned, why don't your dad say those words that way? But it's okay. They all worked out okay. And the great thing is that now as adults, they all took the strengths assessments, and we now know their strengths as well. So there's a question in the chat. Can I go ahead and address it? Which is,
Absolutely.
my goal for attending was to see if there could be utilized for my group sessions for my clients with different disabilities. Is that a possibility? Terry, we'd want to talk very specifics. One thing I know for sure about the assessment is that you can do a timed assessment, which is what they recommend, but they also have an untimed assessment. I have a son who's dyslexic, and we did the untimed assessment, which he found very, very easy for him to accomplish. That was good. So we know that there's that untimed assessment to help gather that information. And then the second part, going back to our model of kind of naming and claiming it, we'd want to talk with you about what specific goals you're trying to address with your clients. Ellen, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I think that's good. Yeah, it's very customized and tailored. Audrey, is there another question?
Doesn't look like there's any more questions in the chat unless I've missed it. Do folks have any questions? You can unmute if you would like. I just wanted to share, I know I shared in the beginning that our team has done it, and I feel like it's really impacted the way, just as Alex said, that how we connect with each other and how we collaborate. I don't know if folks have noticed, Nikki has her strengths in her signature, which I love, and I'm going to drop in my strengths in the chat because I think that's a part of claiming it. And I can think of like a few different applications, like, Alex shared with her within Vashti, with youth, but also like thinking about like coalitions. Folks might be coming from different organizations, and you might consider, is this something that would support coalition work? So those are just some examples that I could think of.
Hey, I'm Lizanne Roberts. So I'm down in the coastal region. I was thinking about doing this with our steering committee, and so I've taken it. I was going to drop mine in the chat. It's been about a long time, 15 years probably since I took it. One of the questions I had was, I'm guessing that my strengths don't change dramatically over time. It could, right? But so that was a question. And then my second question is, if we connected with you to do, so we would have them do a timed version of it online, pay for it, and then you guys would do the debrief. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
So the answer to your first question is what the Gallup research shows is the first assessment is typically the most reliable. Okay. So if you take it multiple times, you can see some shifting, but typically your 5 signature strengths, they may be in another order, but they're typically going to be within that 12 to 13 range. It's rare, very rare that it would signature strength would drop into below 13. It happens occasionally, but that's an outlier. So typically, yeah, your strengths are your strengths because it's your DNA. So there's some
Yeah.
shifting depending on your life experiences and where you may be with your career. But for the most part, those are your signature strengths for good. And in terms of the way this would work is, yes, the staff, whoever has been identified would take the assessment, and then John and I would follow up with the facilitation. And again, when you receive that methodology, oftentimes we include that so that organizations can look and say, you know, I really like this part. I really want this. The name it, claim it, aim it is really the core. So everybody would get that. But one of the, a topic that has continued to increase over the last 2-3 years for John and I is, I think every organization we've worked with has wanted us to include a piece on change and transition. Because it's so much a part of our lives now. And y'all know so well that you're constantly going through change and transition. So, you know, that is something that we've incorporated into the curriculum and into the workshop. And so we'll talk about the difference and talk about how change and transition, what that looks like within an organization, and how organizations that successfully do that, what are the key ingredients to that, and how to use your strengths, your individual and your team strengths to help manage that and to successfully navigate through it. So that's just an example of how it's customized, you know, based on, is there a specific challenge that you're having that we can help you address? So it's a combination of the core and then customized.
So this is how old I am. So I took it when the book came out.
Oh, me too.
When the
Me
first
too.
one.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. The online is much better now, because when you do the online, then you have access. It just opens the door to all those resources that you have through Gallup.
Yeah.
John?
Listen, if you haven't done so already, go to, I think it's mygallup.com. You can pull up the assessment report is brand new. It is a lot better. Even in the 7 years I've been working, they've made really significant improvements. I love the reliability question. It is something that I nerd out on quite a bit, actually. You know, in 7 years, I probably talked with, coached, consulted with hundreds and hundreds of people about their strengths. And I have, in that time period, only found 2 cases where there were significant changes, and I'm talking very significant changes in their life. And because of those significant changes, their assessment result looked different. And to me, it's fascinating. The outliers are always going to be there, you know, because that's the way reliability works. 95% of the time, it looks really good. And those 5%, things happen. And so it's a fascinating thing to think about. I won't pick on anybody who I might know might be in that group of 2, but they want to speak on their
You
own.
can say it.
Okay, Alex is one of the 2, and we've had some really great conversations about her situation. I don't want to speak for her. The other thing I want to pick up on is that, and I think Shay asked the similar question, you can go out and access your report. If you have trouble doing that, when you get a follow-up email, it'll have my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you navigate that if need be.
And we had one other question about, is there some general information about the fee structure for services if teams were interested in this? Or who would they contact about that?
Either one of us. And again, it will depend on how many sessions. It will depend, there are some variables there. Each assessment is individually priced. Because we are both certified trainers and coaches, we receive a discount that we pass on to clients, but we can't give you a flat rate because it depends on how many people, how many sessions, how many assessments are needed. But yeah, either one of us, just contact us and we can certainly have that conversation.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's all the questions that we had. Hopefully I didn't miss any, but we're a little over time, but I'm so grateful for folks who spent their lunch break with us, and so grateful to Ellen and John and Alex for sharing all this information. I think this was a really great first Lunch and Learn, and we'll send more information about the ones coming up. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.